Consider what is happening tonight in Brazil. So thanks to what was very clearly a rigged election, a convicted criminal called Lula da Silva is now the president of the most important country in South America. Millions of people in Brazil understand exactly what happened. They know that their democracy has been hijacked, possibly forever.
There's Tucker Carlson lying to the American people about what transpired in Brazil, and more importantly, completely slandering Lula da Silva as a criminal, when in fact he was made a political prisoner by Jair Bolsonaro because he was favored to win the presidential election years ago. And turns out that his charges were dropped. You know, it's interesting because the person who got those charges dropped through his reporting was Glenn Greenwald. We're gonna get to him in just a moment. Really strange that Tucker Carlson's buddy, Glenn Greenwald, doesn't get an invite on the show to discuss something that they might disagree on. I don't know. But let me give you some context and then we'll discuss the Greenwald angle here. The claim was already exposed as bogus after loser Jair Bolsonaro contested the results of last year's election with Brazil's superior election tribunal. The notion that the election was stolen from Bolsonaro. Now, the tribunal denied Bolsonaro's claim, stating that the election was as free and fair as any Brazil has had since becoming a democracy again. Previously, there was a military coup in Brazil, and obviously that is not a democratic situation. But since it became a democracy again, they've had free and fair elections, with the exception of Lula da Silva being made a political prisoner. But nonetheless, let's watch Tucker talk some more about Lula da Silva, Brazil's president, because he's about to describe him as if he's some sort of supervillain, and I think there's a reason for that. Let's watch.
Lula may be a criminal, in fact he is, but he has the full support of both the Biden administration and the Chinese government. So the obvious question is, why are protesters in Brazil so angry? Well, they're angry because the new Lula government has eliminated their most basic civil liberties. Lula is working to turn Brazil into a Chinese-style dictatorship, and he's doing it very quickly with maximum aggression.
That couldn't be further from the truth. I'm gonna prove that through Glenn Greenwald's reporting. But before I do, Cenk, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, look, we've entered a new era. So were there plenty of lies from politicians in the media before? Sure, of course. And we've seen us document that over and over again. But this is a different level of brazen. Tucker Carlson said that the elections in Brazil were, quote, very clearly rigged, when there's not one piece of evidence that they were rigged. None, zero, no one thinks that. I mean, that is just such an outrageous lie. And he doesn't know that Lula was arrested and then vindicated. He was arrested by Bolsonaro for political reasons, and he was a political prisoner. That makes Bolsonaro the tyrant that Tucker Carlson's talking about. But Tucker Carlson is in favor of tyrants. He is priming his audience here. He praised the people attempting to coup in Brazil against their democracy. He did it over and over again in that segment. Unbelievable, outrageous lies, and a clear support for fascism. If you don't like the elections, Tucker Carlson tells you over and over again, in America, in Brazil, anywhere you are, and if you're a right winger, who cares? Just take the government by violence, by force. These are super dangerous times, and Fox News allows this without any hesitation at all. Fox News encouraging the destruction of our democracy and democracies across the world. Rupert Murdoch is a cancer on this planet. I don't mean that in a right-wing way, or to go do something about it. Don't. We never do anything physical. But we have to fight back with words. And then you have to realize what a monster Rupert Murdoch and the people that are running Fox News are.
Now, while Glenn Greenwald certainly spends quite a lot of time attacking those on the broadly speaking left on Twitter, I haven't really noticed him correcting Tucker Carlson on this matter. And really, the last time he did any genuine journalism was when he uncovered what really transpired with Lula da Silva in Brazil. It was a report that he published in The Intercept. He loves to bring it up when anyone on the left criticizes him. So he should bring it up now in reference to Tucker Carlson's lies. I'll wait. But nonetheless, here's what he wrote back in June 9th of 2019. An enormous trove of secret documents reveals that Brazil's most powerful prosecutors, who have spent years insisting they are apolitical, instead plotted to prevent the Workers' Party, or PT, and that was the party that Lula da Silva was running with, from winning the 2018 presidential election by blocking or weakening a pre-election interview with former President Inácio Lula da Silva, with the explicit purpose of affecting the outcome of the election. That ain't it, there's more. At the time of Lula's conviction, which has since been thrown out, by the way, all polls showed that the former president, who had twice been elected by large margins in 2002 and then again in 2006, and left office with an 87% approval rating, was the overwhelming front runner to once again win the presidency in 2018. But Lula's criminal conviction last year, once it was quickly affirmed by an appellate court, rendered him ineligible to run for the presidency, clearing the way for Bolsonaro, the far-right candidate, to win against Lula's chosen successor, Haddad, and the former Sao Paulo mayor. One thing that I want to note is that Sergio Moro, the judge who had convicted Lula da Silva, well, it was unearthed by Glenn Greenwald himself that the judge was in contact with Bolsonaro and they were conspiring to get Lula da Silva imprisoned for alleged corruption, to essentially destroy his chances of becoming the next president or winning the 2018 presidential election. Finally, again, this is from Glenn Greenwald's reporting. Consistent with journalistic practice in countries where the press operates under the threat of censorship and prior restraint orders, as has been the situation recently in Bolsonaro-led Brazil, we did not see comment from the powerful legal officials mentioned in these stories prior to publication, because we did not want to give them advance notice of this reporting, and because the documents speak for themselves. A free press exists to shine a light on what the most powerful figures in society do in the dark. So that's Glenn Greenwald referring to Jair Bolsonaro and the lack of press freedom under his leadership. But Tucker Carlson loves that about Bolsonaro, loves it.
Yeah, so look, that's back when Glenn Greenwald was a terrific journalist, one of the best we had. That's why his turn to the dark side has been so heartbreaking. And he's known for two giant stories, along with other great stories, but Edward Snowden and the Bolsonaro story. And so good news for Tucker Carlson, if you want an expert on Bolsonaro and Lula and the Brazilian elections, Glenn's on his show all the time. You just bring Glenn on, and then Glenn could make a choice. Does he want to sell his soul even further and destroy his legacy by going out there and dancing for Tucker and going, okay, Lula's the bad guy, Bolsonaro's the good guy? I don't know if he can get himself to do that. Maybe he can, I don't know. But certainly, if they're to disagree, and maybe they do here, all of a sudden he's not on the show. It's almost like he brings on Glenn to dance for him whenever he wants.
Yep.
But when it's inconvenient, all of a sudden there's no Glenn Greenwald to be found. I mean, you can't find a better guest on this topic than Glenn. And yet he's not on there when he's on there every other night, telling him how great the right wing is, how wonderful Trump is, how wonderful the right wing is, how terrible the left wing, how terrible the Democrats are. So it's really, it's a little soul crushing to see people sell out in live action, right? And to see it play out like this. Tucker Carlson is one of the most dangerous people in the country. He's a serial liar, but he's not a guy like Trump, that is, or Santos, that's a pathological liar where he can't help himself. No, he does it on purpose. He knows very well that he isn't telling the truth about those Brazilian elections. He's priming his audience for fascism. Lula had an 87% approval rating when he was put in prison by a judge who we have proven already, the Brazilian authorities have proven was corrupt and did it to get rid of an opponent of Bolsonaro. Tucker Carlson keeps that from his audience, says the exact opposite. And I guarantee you next time Glenn Greenwald goes on his show, he will not bring that up. He will not challenge Tucker on his lies. He will just pathetically nod along. Yes, Tucker, yes, Tucker, I'll do anything for you. Jesus Christ, man, have some self-respect.